Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for logging on here to Southern Indiana Weather. I'm meteorologist Michael Wilhite. Wanted to do a video forecast update today that I know will be on many of your minds. The potential for severe weather is coming up this week. I've been posting about it on our Facebook page, and I want to just sort of go through the models and give you the latest thinking as far as what's going on with this. Models have been kind of all over the place, but we're starting to come into a little bit better agreement now, and I'll show you some of the data and you can kind of get a feel for what we're headed in store this week. We could be in store for a very wet week. So just real quick, if you take a look at our temperature trends for the week, check out the temperatures. This is the raw data from the GFS model, so this is what the model forecast is. This isn't specifically my forecast. If you want that, go to southernindianaweather.com and click on 7-day forecast, and you'll be able to get that. And you see upper 50s today, but then we go into the 60s, which is pretty nice, to pretty close to 70, and the models are actually spitting out some temperatures that are pretty close to 70 on Wednesday, and then Thursday it's starting to back off a little bit compared to the data that I used to complete the forecast this morning. The data on Thursday has come in a little bit cooler. But we are monitoring for the potential of a very strong cold front and associated low pressure system moving in on Thursday, on Halloween. Now, the timing on this thing has varied over a model run, but I think we're going to start to be able to hone in that timing a little bit more as time goes on. And then, of course, in the longer range, if you just switch over here to the GFS ensembles, you can see that we're in for a little bit of a cool down again. Yes, we get to mid to upper 60s by the time we get to Wednesday and Thursday, along with that warmth that's coming ahead of the next cold front. But then significantly behind that, we cool down again. And in one of my previous videos, I talked, well, several of them I've talked about the typhoon rule, but of course we had Typhoon Francisco and Typhoon Lekema, who have both now dissolved and are in the jet stream. And remember, whenever we get those move into the jet stream, 6 to 10 days later after that, we can expect a sharp cool down off of that. And if you'll remember right from the previous video, I told you anywhere from November 3rd, 4th on through the 8th, maybe in that time frame, expect something. And that's exactly what you're starting to see. It starts to bottom out here November the 2nd. By the 4th, you're up to the mid 50s, but then keeping on down. So in that time frame somewhere, we're expecting another cool down again. So just understand that that's on the radar screen. But the most important thing that we want to take a look at least this week, is the potential of our severe weather event. And check out what the European model does for this, and you can see a decent amount of heavy rain with this. Essentially what you have here is a low pressure system with a very powerful cold front going through like this, and you have a warm front that's moved through northern Indiana and is through here. Now I want you to notice timing wise on this. Timing wise, we're looking at Friday at 0Z, so that is actually Thursday at 8 p.m. So Halloween at 8 p.m., the potential cold front could be knocking on our door from that. And what's really important about that, not only because it's trick-or-treating and we don't want the rain for the kiddos, but we have the potential for some severe weather with this. And all the models are starting to come into a little bit better agreement with that. Here's what the GFS is actually saying for that. If we just go back here and we put it into motion, high pressure, large and in charge of us today, and but we start to notice this storm system developing out of the mountains over here and moving on. Watch what this does. It forms a low pressure system and it starts ejecting that from the Rockies, and it actually moves it up a little bit further away from us than what the European model wants to put it. The European model actually here would be more favorable for severe weather for us because we would be closer to that low pressure system. But you can certainly get a decent amount of severe weather with this, as we will see as well. And I want you to also sort of notice what this little dip is down here, and it's almost as if it's trying to essentially form a secondary low pressure system down here with a cold front sort of going like this, and warm front moving well up into here. And then notice the rain ahead of that. And let's just dive into severe weather parameters. Remember, when we look for severe weather, there are three things that as a meteorologist I want to look at for severe weather. The first one is we want to look at instability. What kind of warmth and moisture do we have going for us? And then we want to look at wind shear. How about the strong winds? Are they strong enough to support severe weather? And then finally, is there a forcing mechanism? Is there some sort of a low pressure, a front, something on here that can give us a solid indication of what we can find? That could be a signal for severe weather. So let's dive into these models and we'll see, and I think what you're going to see is that we do see some of these indications, and we'll talk about them. So if we switch over from the GFS here, by the way, real quick, I just wanted to show you the NAM model does not go out far enough to see it yet, but if you actually compare where the NAM stops and where the GFS takes over as far as the same hour, the GFS leaves the low at that time just over northern Iowa into southern Minnesota, and that is close to where the NAM finds it. The NAM finds it just a little further south. So what we can see is that the NAM is in a similar vein, and that increases our confidence a little bit with the GFS. And as a couple of days pass, it'll start to be seen by the NAM, which is a higher resolution mesoscale model, which will help us to kind of hone down the forecast a little bit. But let's just take a look at the dynamics that we have in place with this system, and that will help us understand what's going on. So here we are on Halloween Day at 18Z, so that would be 2 p.m. in the afternoon, and what we're looking at here is 500 millibar winds. So we're looking at wind speeds roughly 18,000 feet up into the atmosphere, somewhere around in there, and you can see they're just roaring up in there. You have a very strong upper level low pressure centered up over here, and of course your surface low is going to be stacked on that sort of down here. You have your cold front moving through by this time, but check out these 70 to 80 knot winds well up above over us. That is certainly conducive to severe weather whenever you get winds that strong. The jet stream, of course, if you go up to about 40,000 feet into the atmosphere, the winds are whipping close to 120 knots up there. So, folks, this is some serious wind speeds. This is stuff to be deeply concerned about whenever you have a deepening low pressure system like this that develops over here, moves up and deepens. When you got these kind of winds with it, you really want to watch out. But here's what I'm really concerned about. If we go down into the atmosphere to the 850 millibar level, remember this is only 5,000 or so, maybe even a little bit less feet from that. Check out, and let me go back one here. Check out the lower level jet. Sometimes we call it the LLJ, if you're familiar with that term. 50 to 60 knots of wind, not even 5,000 feet up into the atmosphere above us. If this translates somehow down to the ground, we could be looking at a very damaging line of storms to come through. And so, as far as the strong winds go, if you can get a lower level jet, an LLJ of maybe 25 to 30, 35 knots or better, you're doing pretty good about looking for severe weather. We're talking 50 to 60 knots with this particular system. So there's the potential for some very damaging winds if we can get them down to the surface. As far as instability goes, let's look at our surface dew points. What you're going to find is we are warming up to near upper 50s to near 60 on those dew points, and that's certainly more than enough moisture to lead us to severe weather. Precipitable waters, so that we can tell, you see we have a lot of water available in the atmosphere to us, so that could be potential for a heavy rain event as well. If we take a look at vorticity, the amount of spin in with this, you notice it almost on this tries to form a secondary low pressure on this as well, and you can see really more like right in here for that secondary low pressure, and then right in here, and so if that's the case, that would give even more of a potent punch to it as it moves in. So plenty of dynamics at work here. The one thing that's not at work very well is CAPE, convective available potential energy. It's a measure of instability in the atmosphere. But you do notice there's a little bit of CAPE. It's kind of hard to see, but maybe we have anywhere from say 250 to 500 units in parts over us as the storm system moves over us. So that's not a ton of instability. But this time of the year, keep in mind, we don't have to have a ton of instability this time of year to come up with a severe weather event. We're in the late fall season now, and well, mid-fall season, I guess, by now. And this time of year, you don't have to have capes like you would in the summer months, of where you're going to want these as 2,000 to even 3,000 units of cape in order to get some decent severe weather out of this. You can get 250, 500, maybe 750 units, and combine that with some strong upper level dynamics. Yeah, you can get some severe weather out of this. So, bottom line, is it a guarantee? No, but the parameters are certainly there. And another thing we take a look at, you've seen me use before, is a measure of bulk shear. And remember, I say 35 to 40 knots of bulk shear is sufficient for severe weather. And here we are in Indiana, and we're encroaching here on 50, 60, even 70 knots of bulk shear moving into us. So these are just flat out impressive numbers. I'll be honest, I'm concerned about this system, and it's certainly one that we are going to want to keep our eyes on. Go to the Storm Prediction Center's website. They've already outlined what they would expect for the coming days. And day 5 on theirs, which would be Thursday, they've outlined this particular area right now for severe weather. But if you read their discussion, essentially what they say is if the dynamics can get in place, they believe that the area could look more like this if everything is just right. And you can see that very easily if you just go down and read their text discussion on it. So I'll let you do that on your own. But they're just not confident enough to move that up into our area yet. I believe that's going to change in coming days. I think if the models continue to show the same consistency that they have been, GFS has been showing consistently a severe weather event for days now. The Euro has went kind of back and forth on could it be, could it not, and it seems like it's starting to come more online. If we can get good model agreement like this over the next couple of days, I think we could be in for some doozy of some storms. So this is certainly something that we want to monitor for the potential of severe weather. Again, this is not something that we can guarantee at this point, but it is something, here we are on Sunday afternoon at about 3:30 p.m. in the afternoon. We're timing wise on this. The Euro model on this is taking us, here it is Thursday at 8 p.m., so it's going to be overnight before we get a lot of these severe storms moving in with the Euro. Whereas if we put the GFS into it, by the time the line is starting to roll through us, we're at 2 in the afternoon on Thursday. So the reality is, timing-wise, is still off on this too. And that's something that we're really going to have to hone in on. When exactly is it going to come through? Is it going to be 2 in the afternoon, or is it going to be more like midnight? That's a wide spread on here. I think the models will sort of correct themselves. And what you actually see if you've been following the models on this is the GFS has started to correct itself. In its previous model runs, it had this line coming through as early as 6, 7, 8 in the morning on Thursday. Now it's got it to about 2 in the afternoon before we really start to see that front near us. So it's slowing down. It'll be interesting to see if it continues to slow down anymore. And actually, if it slows down until the Euro's indication where it's later at night, we could even be in worse shape as far as severe weather goes. I mean, the Euro model actually has some pretty decent parameters as for severe weather on us too. Lower level jet, whenever you look at it for the Euro model, yeah, you've got 25 to 30 knot winds on that as well. Now, that's not as impressive as the GFS is by any means. But that's strong enough that you could get something going off of it, and it's the same way with the 500 millibar wind speeds there, 50 to 60 knot. Again, not as impressive as the GFS, but certainly impressive enough that you could get some severe weather with it. So, the bottom line is this is all going to work itself out over the coming days, and it's something that we're just going to have to continue monitoring. But understand very clearly that the potential does exist for severe weather. As far as for what type of severe weather, at this point it really looks to me like a squall line would be the most probable in this case for a number of reasons, but we could not rule out an isolated tornado or two. I don't think we'd be looking at supercells. With as much wind shear as we have in the atmosphere, I think the supercells would just get shredded to pieces. This is more conducive to a squall line. So we'll keep an eye on it. Make sure you go check out our forecast at www.southernindianaweather.com. I'll keep you updated here on this page, and we'll have more video updates. But just look at it this way: when you're getting close to 70 degrees any particular time this time of the year, severe weather is on the table, and that's almost a guarantee. So more on this to come in the coming days. For Southern Indiana Weather, I'm meteorologist Michael Wilhite.